Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. For those of you that are returning subscribers, welcome back. And for those of you that are brand new to the channel, welcome to the review. I'm going to be your host, Johnny Mac, and today we are going to be going over a video that is not necessarily new. It was actually broadcast in 2018. We are going to be talking about Matt Walsh's reaction to Good Morning America's The Drag Kid. Now, this drag kid goes by the stage name of Desmond is Amazing, and he is 11. Now, I'm going to warn the audience that has tuned in today. You might find this a little bit graphic, as I do. I find it quite repulsing, to be honest. And, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Pretty good, juicy one today, guys. But before we get into the video, be sure to hit like on this video, and also don't be afraid to smash that subscribe button. We have lots of future content planned. We're going to be doing some pretty interesting things. We're actually not going to be focusing just directly on controversial issues, but I do have plans to actually bring up some, comedy reactions as well, probably some TikTok reactions and stuff like that. But if you guys are definitely interested in, the mainstream neopolitical, hot topics, as it were, hit that subscribe button. Do it. I will definitely appreciate it, and you will not regret it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into this review.
Very often in our world today, we are told that we must disbelieve our lying eyes. Truths that are right in front of us, plain as day, are to be rejected as mere figments of our imagination. The most obvious realities become conspiracy theories. Statements of basic fact are propaganda. We run fact checks on self-evident certitudes, and the fact check corrects the record. Reality is not reality. We are informed. The sun is not in the sky. Water is not wet. There is no gravity. We're not living on planet Earth. Nothing that you see is real. The self-assigned arbiters of truth assure us. Don't rely on your own common sense. Close your eyes, which so often deceive you anyway, and let them guide you to and fro. Let them be your window into the world. They will tell you what is real and what isn't. And they, our culture's truth deciders, have decided that all of the recent talk about grooming is absurd, outrageous, offensive, bigoted. It's all just a bunch of anti-gay fear-mongering, they say. And the claim that Disney of all companies, Disney, not Disney, the claim that they're actively grooming and sexualizing children is the most ludicrous falsehood of all, they insist. That's why, they tell us, the move in Florida last week to take away Disney's special tax privileges was a catastrophic overreaction. Worse, it was an all-out assault on the First Amendment somehow. I mean, Disney has no constitutional right to the extra privileges afforded it by Florida, but now that it has those privileges, taking them away is unconstitutional, we're told. It's an unnecessary act of retribution. Disney didn't do anything to deserve this. Poor, helpless Disney, that $200 billion damsel in distress. Disney now needs its own Prince Charming to come rescue it, but unfortunately, Disney declared years ago that those kinds of characters are misogynistic, retrograde, gender essentialist, and so there is no one left to save them. They are abandoned to the clutches of the dastardly DeSantis, a man who, we are reminded, completely made up this whole issue of Disney grooming children. That is entirely fictional. And yet, there are, of course, many examples we can point to, and have pointed to many times recently, of Disney endorsing, encouraging, and often actively engaging in predatory grooming practices towards children. We've gone through the partial catalog, enough to prove the point, I think, but we've missed one example. One example so disgusting and twisted and over the top that it's really the only one we need. The conversation could begin and end right here. Anyone defending Disney?
Now, before we continue, I want to draw out, a particular point that Matt Walsh made. Is that, a lot of times people, when they hear the term Disney, they think of usually two things. Either Disney World being the main thing that they think of, and Disneyland. They fail to understand that Disney is a huge incorporated entity. I'm not even going to call it a corporation at this point, because its reach is so far branching and so far reaching that you can't even possibly imagine just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Not only do they own Lucasfilm, which Lucasfilm has a whole bunch of other, production studios under its umbrella and so forth. Disney itself has its own various production studios. It owns its own news network, ABC News, and underneath that, guys, it has Good Morning America, which, it's sad because Good Morning America I used to watch whenever I was a kid. I was homeschooled for 7 years, and almost every single morning, my mother, she would have her cup of coffee and we'd watch Good Morning America. It was seemingly good entertainment at the time. But somewhere along the lines, things have gotten twisted. Things have gone awry and taken a different turn. And make no mistake that there is a very deep rabbit hole that goes with Disney. And it is something I plan to cover later on. And, it is a borderline conspiracy. No. Conspiracy is something that is, generally based upon some sort of theory, right? I don't like delving into conspiracies too much, but I do like dealing with facts. And whenever I get around to actually doing this video, there's many moving parts, with it. But Disney, once again, has shareholders and it has interests, right? It's not just its own. It has investors. And anytime that you have investment, in particular outside investment, especially investment from different countries, you can run into some very interesting ethical choices, right? But that's either here nor there for this video. But once again, hit subscribe if you want to see that video later on. That is actually planned very, very soon. But let's go ahead and get back into the review.
Anyone claiming that the grooming label is unfair or overboard, anybody, including people on the right, panicking over Florida's revocation of Disney's legal privileges, should be confronted with this clip. This is from an episode of Good Morning America on ABC, which is, of course, owned by Disney. Because when we're talking about Disney, we're not just talking about Disney World and Mickey Mouse and The Little Mermaid. We're talking about all of the media properties that Disney owns, like ABC. Now, what you're about to see happened on live TV on a major network in front of a live studio audience. I didn't dig this up from the darkest fringes of the internet. This is as mainstream as it gets. It's what Disney promotes and supports. So here's the time when Good Morning America featured an 11-year-old boy in drag. The child's stage name is Desmond is Amazing, and everyone in the building, including the hosts, including Michael Strahan, who's one of the hosts, seem to very much agree that what you're about to see is indeed amazing. Here it is.
Please welcome Desmond Napoles, a.k.a. Desmond is Amazing.
Now, I want you to pay close attention to all the adults and all their faces during this entire time. Okay, and then we're going to raise another point after we watch this abomination of a show. I don't even know how to describe it, but pay close attention to everybody's faces during this. Okay.
Hello, Desmond. How are you? How you doing?
Thanks for being here. I love that you.
Now, we live in a society today that thinks that this is okay. Some may think that this actually isn't as mainstream as it actually is. But what's interesting about mainstream in today's society is that, whenever I was younger, mainstream was dictated by the actions of the majority, right? Now, mainstream has actually changed to a point where mainstream is considered what's portrayed in the media, right? And that's very interesting to me. And if you don't believe me, just look at how the news networks operate today. When they put something out, they don't just inform you of the facts, right, that are known at that time. They inform you of the facts and the information as they interpret it. They tell you what to think. It's not the same way as it used to be 20 years ago, right? So when we're talking mainstream, it literally almost means mainstream. Stream or streaming has become primary terminology in today's society. Whenever you think streaming, you're thinking, well, YouTube, or you think Twitch or something of that sort, right? So when we say mainstream, and how mainstream justifies this is becoming mainstream. And what's even more interesting to think is, imagine, if you will, that this was your 11-year-old daughter being pranced around and paraded in front of grown-ass adults. And then she lays prostrate on the floor, and these grown-ass adults cheer as if something extraordinary is being accomplished outside of and nothing short of perversion and sexual abuse. I don't really have any other way of putting it. If you're going to get to the root of any issue, you have to play the devil's advocate. Some might say, oh, well, this is fine, or not even think twice about it because this is a boy, which some would argue, as far as the woke terminologies, that boy and girl and man and woman is nothing but a construct. Well, I assure you, it is not. It is not a construct. It's rooted in biology. And we won't go into that into any detail because we could be here all day discussing this. But like I said, imagine, if you will, that this was an 11-year-old girl, or even better, an 11-year-old biological female. It would be akin to pornography, right? But because this is a woke agenda, right, that's started who knows how long ago, and this is a boy dressed in drag and this, that, and the other, it's seemingly okay. Not only is that a double standard, but it's a huge issue that needs to be discussed, right? Just putting that out there.
I love root beer, caffeine free. I can get on board with that.
My mom doesn't like me drinking caffeine.
Does it make you hyper?
Mommy doesn't like me drinking caffeine, but she's okay with me dressing as a stereotypical prostitute in front of grown-ass adults. Way to go, Mom. Good parenting. Solid.
Yeah, me too. They don't like when I drink caffeine either. But Desmond, you're one of the youngest and first drag queen/kids. And I've heard that you've gotten messages from young adults who look up to you for being who you are. What are some of the notes you've gotten?
Some of the notes I've gotten are like that you inspire me very much, and I wish I could have had the support that you have when I was a child.
Now, if you're listening to the audio podcast, you have been spared the worst of what we just experienced altogether. Though you can't fully appreciate just how dark and deranged it was, because Desmond, the 11-year-old drag kid, quote unquote, prances out on stage in women's clothes, makeup caked on his face, dances for the adoring crowd of grown adults, at one point lays himself out prostrate on the ground on the stage while creepy Michael Strahan stares and claps. And then he sits down for a lengthy interview. And later in this segment that was aired on Disney's ABC, even though Disney totally is not trying to groom children at all. Later in the segment, 3 adult drag queens are brought out on stage with Desmond in their full cross-dressing costumes, woman face fully on, and they proceed to give Desmond gifts of makeup and quote-unquote dance classes. Watch.
You guys want to tell us what's out here real quick?
Well, I drew Desmond a little green-haired lady. It's for you. It's to bring you good luck and prosperity in your future.
And to eat iceberg lettuce.
And to eat iceberg lettuce. Good roughage, okay? There you go.
With tomatoes and cucumbers.
Absolutely.
And I brought you a gift basket of some of
the
my
lashes
favorite. Actually, you know what? Let me actually hand it to you because.
So the definition of grooming, for those who don't know, is, when an adult courts a minor child, 18 or below. Often it's used, gifts are used to coerce and to make the child feel at ease and fall subject eventually to the mental and sexual abuse that will likely follow, correct? We're literally seeing grooming taking place right in front of our eyes. And now, mind you, this was back in 2018. This was a perfect example of Disney, ABC, Good Morning America, pushing the envelope of what really is acceptable, or at least what they would find to be acceptable by society. And it's extremely disturbing and unfortunately very disheartening. Now, I'm not going to continue any further with this, other than I will say is that Desmond's parents, who were in the audience at the time that this was done, this was stated by Matt Walsh. A little bit later on in the video, we'll actually see about fast forwarding, is, this becomes a gigantic issue in that he is being exposed to a culture at 11 years old that he should not be exposed to. He's being indoctrinated into an adult entertainment culture, right? And also on top of that, there's video evidence to show that Desmond has been exposed at some point in time or another to the use of ketamine. Matt Walsh's team, they present a clip where Desmond is actually mimicking the consumption of ketamine. And that in of itself is also extremely disturbing. Let's see if we can actually jump directly to that clip here.
How to do or be aware of. Just for reference, here's that moment.
Anyone can do drag. Everyone can do drag.
Everyone can.
Your mom can do drag. What has this world come to? It's come to a world where drag kids actually exist.
And people do ketamine on a couch. And people do ketamine on a couch.
Yeah, so he's...
So, explain to me, as grown-ass adults that are watching this video right now, how does this 11-year-old know what it looks like to do ketamine? Or even better yet, if you want to say that this is hearsay, for those of that are, quasi-informed as far as the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, hearsay was thrown around a lot. If you want to say that's hearsay, then explain to me why the grown-ass adult drag queen to his left in the video even made the statement in the first place. It's very interesting, and one can lead to speculate that there's a interesting reason as to why he does say this. Bottom line, this minor child is being abused sexually, emotionally, and mentally, and his parents are okay with it. You can't put it any other way. And what's interesting is that this video I didn't even know existed at the time. It went unseen, but it leads into this other little video that I'm about to end this video with. If you think this isn't an issue, well, it's become an issue. Here recently, there was this event in Dallas, Texas, where parents actually took their children to a nightclub and had drag queens perform right in front of them. Whole families and minor children. And I don't even know what to say there, other than, once again, abuse in the gravest form, right? And what's even more interesting is that it's full of subliminal messaging. Now subliminal messaging is anything that is not directly being introduced to the viewer, but it's part of the environment. In this case, as you can see, it's not going to lick itself, is the sign that is right there in plain sight of these minor children. The desensitization of America is in full swing, folks. It's full swing. Let's go ahead and play this review.
Do you think exposing children to drag will result in more kids doing drag eventually?
I think so, and I hope so.
So, if I were to take a guess, I would say that these kids being exposed to this hyper sexualized and downright shameful and degrading site, they can't be much older than 8. And the parents are handing them money and then exposing them and literally indoctrinating their children to give these drag queens tips for this performance. If that in and of itself is not extremely disheartening and grotesque, I don't know what is. This video was done on the Daily Caller. There's a lot more of it. I will leave a link down in the description below for everybody's viewing pleasure. I am not going to play the whole thing. And I will also leave a link in the description below down to Matt Walsh's original video, so that way proper credits can be applied. But all very disturbing, guys. All very disturbing. The rabbit hole goes a lot deeper, but for which we do not have enough time to discuss. But if you subscribe to this channel, you will see a lot more of this, and we will talk, you know, on many, many points that expose the rabbit hole for what it is. And I think you'll be very interested to know that the rabbit hole goes pretty deep. It's unfortunate that things have degraded to the point that they have, and that people place such little value on their child's minds and their child's future. It's very disturbing, folks. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in to the review. And if you don't mind, it would help me out a great ton if you would smash like on this video and subscribe. There's plenty more to come from this channel, and I hope that you all tune in to the next video. As always, thanks for watching.